The first glance. The university courtyard was alive that afternoon, shimmering with the vibrant energy of youth. Groups of students clustered around trees, laughing loudly about lectures, relationships, and dreams too large to fit into their small hostel rooms. The sun, warm and golden, rested on the shoulders of everyone who walked beneath it, as though wishing them luck on their winding journeys. Amaka adjusted the strap of her backpack as she hurried across the courtyard, her mind swimming with thoughts of upcoming exams and the future she hoped to build. She always walked with purpose, shoulders straight, eyes focused, like someone who believed life owed her something good. Her friends often teased her, calling her Miss Determination, but Amaka didn't mind. She knew she wanted more than an ordinary life. As she crossed the walkway, a stray sheet of paper escaped from her folder. She didn't notice, until a calm, masculine voice floated toward her. "Careful, you almost dropped your future." Amaka stopped. She turned. There he was, Chukwuemeka. He stood with one hand in his pocket, the other holding her escaped paper delicately between his fingers. The sunlight framed him in a soft glow, highlighting a face that seemed carved from confidence and gentleness. His smile was easy, charming, the kind that made strangers pause and look twice. For a moment, Amaka forgot how to breathe. She took the paper from him, their fingers brushing lightly. The simple touch sent a small spark of heat spiraling through her. She swallowed hard. "Thank you," she murmured, suddenly shy. "You're welcome," he replied, chuckling softly. "You walk like someone carrying the whole world. Are you always this serious?" Amaka's lips curved into a small smile. "Maybe, but someone has to be." He tilted his head, studying her with curious eyes that seemed to see through her strong exterior. "What's your name?" "Amaka." He repeated it slowly, as though tasting the syllables. "Amaka. Beautiful name." Her cheeks warmed. She found herself laughing. A soft, unguarded laugh that even she didn't know she had been holding in. A group of students walked past them, but their noises seemed distant, muffled. In that small pocket of time, it felt like the world shrank until it was only the two of them standing under the sun's warm embrace. "I'm Chukwuemeka," he added. "Final year economics." She nodded. "Second year sociology." He said, placing a hand on his chest dramatically. "So you're the intellectual type. I better behave myself." Amaka giggled again, another strange, involuntary reaction she couldn't quite control. She wasn't one to laugh easily with strangers. But something about him disarmed her walls. When he walked with her toward her faculty building, their stride perfectly matched, she felt a sensation she had only read about in novels, like life had shifted slightly, aligning itself to guide her toward something meaningful. She didn't know him. She didn't know his flaws, his secrets, his truth. All she knew was that her heart fluttered in a way she had never felt. And in the soft breeze of that afternoon, with students buzzing around them and birds singing in the mango trees, a tiny seed of love was planted in her chest. Unexpected, tender, hopeful. If only she knew how much that seed would one day cost her.
The university cafe sat at the edge of the faculty buildings, a modest place with worn wooden tables, plastic chairs, and the comforting aroma of fried plantain drifting through its open windows. It was the kind of place where students gathered to escape the stress of lectures, to gossip, to laugh on, sometimes unknowingly, to begin important chapters of their lives. Amaka arrived early, clutching her sociology notebook to her chest. She had planned to review her notes before her afternoon class, but her mind kept replaying the moment she met Chukwuemeka. His voice, his smile, the way he had said her name like he was tasting a tit, all lingered in her heart like a soft melody she couldn't stop humming. She found a corner seat and began flipping through her notes, but the words on the page felt blurry. She sighed and leaned back, pressing her palm against her notebook, as if trying to force herself to focus. Then the chair opposite her scraped softly. She looked up, dressed in a clean polo shirt with a backpack slung casually over one shoulder, and that same calm confidence glowing in his eyes. "I hope this seat isn't taken," he said, resting his hand lightly on the chair. Her heart stumbled in her chest. No, you can sit. He smiled, and something warm unfurled inside her. He placed a small plate between them, suya lined neatly with onions, tomatoes, and a generous sprinkle of pepper. The aroma drifted up and tickled Amaka's senses. For you, he said. Well, technically for us. But I'll pretend I bought it for you, so I'll look generous. Amaka tried not to laugh, but the giggle escaped. You didn't have to. I know, he said, settling into the seat. But I wanted to. She felt shy suddenly, aware of every movement her hands made. She took a tiny piece of suya, careful not to spill pepper on her notes. He watched her with amusement. You're very gentle, he observed. Like you're always thinking, she shrugged. Maybe I'm just careful. Nothing wrong with that. I like careful girls. Her cheeks warmed again, but she forced herself to focus on the suya. Conversation flowed easily, effortlessly, like they had been friends for years. He asked about her course of study, her dreams, her family. He listened not just politely, but fully, leaning in every time she spoke, eyes fixed on her as though her words were water, and he had been thirsty for days. She told him about wanting to work in community development, about her passion for understanding people and systems, and he said, with that disarming smile, "You're going to change lives one day." No one had ever told her that. Not like that. Not with such certainty. Then they talked about him, his struggles, his ambitions, his plans after school. He spoke with an intensity that impressed her, telling her about wanting to own a consulting firm someday. I want a life I can be proud of, he said. A life where I can give my family everything. Her heart fluttered. Family? He used the word with such confidence. It painted a picture in her mind, a home, a future warmth. She found herself hanging onto his words more closely than she intended. Soon the cafe grew louder as more students poured in. The sun dipped slightly in the sky. Amaka realized she had spent over an hour sitting with him, laughing and sharing suya instead of reading her notes. I should probably get going, she said reluctantly. I have a class soon. I'll walk you. And he did. They stepped outside, their shoulders brushing lightly every few minutes. She pretended it meant nothing, but each touch sent a tiny spark through her skin. As they approached her faculty, he slowed his steps, looking at her with a seriousness she hadn't seen before. Amaka, he called gently. She turned. He hesitated for a moment, his eyes soft. I'm really glad I met you. Her breath caught eye. He smiled, slow, deep, meaningful. See you tomorrow. The way he said it, it didn't sound like a question. It sounded like a promise. Amaka nodded, unable to trust her voice. As she walked away, she felt the weight of her own smile stretching across her face.
Rings and vows. The hall shimmered with gold and white decorations, a reflection of the joy I carried in my heart. It was the kind of wedding I had once only dared to daydream about, one filled with laughter, music, prayer, and the sweet scent of new beginnings. My relatives danced around the aisles, wrapper clothes tied tightly, gels standing tall like crowns. Friends from the university filled the front rows, waving excitedly each time I glanced their way. I stood at the entrance, my wedding gown flowing like a river of white silk. My mother adjusted my veil for the 10th time, her eyes glistening with pride. My daughter, she whispered, voice trembling slightly. God has done it for you. I smiled softly. Amen, Mama. But my heart wasn't steady. It raced fast, loud, hopeful. I wasn't afraid. The moment felt bigger than I imagined, like I was stepping into a new world crafted just for me. I took a deep breath, and then the music started. The church doors opened wide, and I began my slow walk down the aisle. Every step felt sacred. Every face I passed beamed with affection. My friends wiped tears. My aunties shouted blessings. Even strangers smiled warmly. But my eyes were fixed only on one person. He stood near the altar, dressed in a cream-colored suit that complemented his tall frame. His expression softened the moment he saw me, his eyes widening with admiration. His lips parting just slightly as if he couldn't breathe for a second. He looked like a dream. I felt my heart melt under the weight of his gaze. In that instant, every conversation we had shared replayed in my mind. The suya at the cafe, the late-night chats, the gentle words that made me feel seen, wanted, chosen. I reached him. He extended his hand. I placed mine in it. And for a moment, the world stood still. The vows. Inside the hall, silence settled, thick and absolute, as the priest stepped forward. Priest, marriage is a solemn covenant, a union blessed by God. You are about to take vows that will bind your hearts, your destinies, your lives. I swallowed a lump that felt too big for my throat. My fingers twisted desperately with Chukwuemeka's. I clung to the steady, burning warmth of his palm, the sanctuary I believed I would live in for the rest of my days. The priest turned to Chukwuemeka. Priest, T.U. Chukwuemeka, take this woman, Amaka, to be your loving and lawful wife, to cherish and honor her in times of joy and in moments of trial, for as long as you both shall live. The hush in the hall was deafening. It felt like the world held its breath, waiting. Chukwuemeka looked into my eyes, his smile not just gentle, but a radiant promise. And he said, without a flicker of doubt, I do. My soul soared, my heart hammered against my ribs, a triumphant drumbeat. The priest faced me.
Priest.
And you, Amaka, do you take this man? I couldn't wait. The emotions were too vast, too powerful to contain. Tears blurred my vision, a flood of gratitude and commitment as I choked out the whisper, I do. The priest blessed the rings, lifting them high. Priest, these rings symbolize eternal love, a circle without end. Chukwuemeka slid the ring onto my trembling finger, his voice a low, sacred vow. With this ring, I join my life with yours. Tried to be steady as I slipped his ring onto his finger, but my hands were shaking with the weight of the promise. In that moment, everything faded. There was only him, me, and the infinite world we were promising each other. The kiss and celebration. The hall erupted with applause when the priest declared, You may kiss your bride. Chukwuemeka leaned forward and kissed me softly, his hand resting lightly on my waist. A warmth, electric and profound, spread through my entire body. Hope, joy, excitement. The kiss tasted like the future I had prayed for. Music burst through the speakers, and my family flooded the aisle with ululations and shouts of joy. My mother danced beside me, cheeks wet with tears. My friends hugged me tightly. My uncles sprayed money on my gown, the notes drifting like blessings from heaven. It was celebration in its purest form. A day of love, a day of laughter, a day of new beginnings. Later that night, inside our new apartment, our first home, Mai walked into the bedroom, smiling shyly. My wedding gown was gone, replaced by a simple silk nightdress. I felt nervous, but so hopeful, tracing my new ring with my fingertip. Chukwuemeka entered behind me, his expression unreadable. He said nothing, just placed his jacket on the chair with a heavy final motion. I turned toward him. Today was perfect, I said softly, searching his eyes. The first few weeks of marriage felt like stepping into a new rhythm, one I believed I could learn with time. I woke early to prepare breakfast, humming lightly as I moved around our small but cozy kitchen. I loved the feeling of being a wife. It made me feel grown, grounded, fulfilled. But slowly, almost too quietly to notice, the rhythm began to change. At first, it was little things. Chukwuemeka waking earlier than usual and slipping out before I got up. Coming home slightly later than he used to. Answering his phone in clipped tones and stepping outside to take calls. His smile, once soft and effortless, became heavier, harder, or simply absent. I told myself it was the stress of transitioning into married life, responsibility, expectations, new routines. I didn't want to be that wife who questioned her husband after every step he took. So I watched. I prayed. I hoped. But the shadows grew. The first sign. One evening, while I set the dining table, I noticed Chukwuemeka sitting on the couch, staring blankly at his phone. His face was stiff, unreadable, illuminated by the cold glow of the screen. "Dinner is ready," I said softly. He didn't respond, didn't even blink. I waited a few seconds, then repeated the words a little louder. Still nothing. It wasn't until I gently touched his shoulder that he snapped his head up, startled. "What?" he barked, his voice sharp enough to make me flinch. My hand retreated immediately. I just said dinner is ready." He exhaled loudly and stood up, his irritation hanging thick in the air. "Next time, don't touch me suddenly like that. I don't like it." Then he walked past me. I stood frozen, my heart confused. He had never spoken to me that way before. But I swallowed the discomfort, reminding myself new marriage, adjustment, patience. Dinner that night was eaten in silence. Changes in intimacy. In the early days of our courtship, Chukwuemeka couldn't go a full day without complimenting me or brushing his fingers lightly against mine. But now, his touch grew infrequent, almost reluctant. Nights became colder. He began sleeping with his back to me. If I tried to cuddle close, he gently, sometimes not so gently, shifted away. If I leaned into his chest, hoping for comfort, he sighed heavily, One night, I whispered, hoping to break the ice, Amika, did I do something wrong? His response was a shrug, eyes still fixed on his phone's screen. Not everything is about you, Amaka. I'm just tired, but the tiredness never left. The phone lock. The next change came with a sharp click. One morning, I picked up his phone from the couch to charge it, something I had always done without issue. But instead of the screen lighting up, a password lock appeared. I blinked. This was new. Chukwuemeka entered the room just then. His voice turned cold immediately. "Why are you touching my phone?" I froze. I just wanted to charge it. He snatched it from my hand as though I had attempted to steal something sacred. "Don't go through my things." I felt my throat tighten. But I wasn't. He walked away before I could finish. The shadows stretched longer that day. Late nights and excuses. First, it was once or twice a week. Then it became every night. Chukwuemeka would return home at odd hours, 11 p.m., midnight, sometimes even past 1. Each time he carried the same excuse: work. But he didn't work a night shift. He didn't have overtime. And the scent of unfamiliar perfume clung faintly to his shirt. I tried to ask casually one evening, "Are you sure everything is okay at work? You're always coming home so late." His eyes hardened instantly. "So now I have to explain myself to you." I shook my head quickly. "No, that's not what I meant." "Then don't ask stupid questions." He walked out of the living room. I remained seated, my fingers trembling around the remote control. My chest ached not from anger, but from fear. A quiet, creeping fear I didn't know how to name yet. Loneliness in a shared home. Days turned into weeks, and the warmth of our marriage bed turned to ice. I found myself waking up alone more often than not. Sometimes he would leave so early I never heard the door. Other times he didn't come home at all. I tried to pour my worry into my prayers. I tried to tell my mother, but I couldn't bring myself to say the words. How could I? How could I admit that the man I had introduced proudly to my family, the man who had looked at me with such tenderness on our wedding day, was slipping away from me already? Even worse, had perhaps never fully belonged to me. Late at night, I would sit on the edge of the bed, staring at my wedding ring under the dim light, whispering to myself, "This is just a phase. Every marriage has a phase. He will come back." But each passing day proved me wrong. The atmosphere thickens. Weeks later, the tension grew so thick I could feel it pressing against my skin. The house felt different, heavier, darker, unfamiliar. I could hear it in the way he shut doors, in the silence that hung between us, in the way he avoided my eyes. We lived under the same roof, but our worlds no longer touched. I tried to talk to him. I tried to reach out physically and emotionally. But each attempt met a wall. A cold, unyielding wall I couldn't see over. I didn't understand what I had done wrong. I didn't know when the love had drained. I didn't even realize that the love I thought I had was never as deep as I believed. All I knew was that something precious was slipping through my fingers.